everybody, welcome to my storytelling YouTube channel. This is Hua. I am happy to have you back. Today I'm going to be reading chapter 4 of Tales of a Consort. So pull up a chair, relax, and enjoy.
You're sleeping with someone new, and I'm in New York for the first time. I hate this weather, but I like the view. It makes me think of new beginnings. Here's to new beginnings. I can't sleep alone, 'cause if I do, I'll think of you. The nights are so long, wondering if you miss me too. I'm losing myself.
King Helion. A wedding night should be a night of celebration between two souls who were in love with each other. But my wedding night, my bride could not look at me, for it was the first time she would ever see me. I saw her before in the court halls when she came to visit, and stole a glance at her. I knew who she was and where she came from, but I was a stranger to her. Yet she would gift me her body for an eternity, and birth my children to sit on the throne after I was long gone. My bride, my queen, my wife, my love. She was all the woman I ever wanted, and yet she could not look at me with anything but despair. I often wondered if her heart held another, but because she never gave me enough reason to suspect her, I asked the tailor to design the most expensive gowns with a fabric that left finger imprints, so I could track who touched her. This was my jealousy as a king, as a husband, as a man. But as ruler of a kingdom, clans from all around the world forced me to take in consorts for military power, for alliances, for peace. So although my queen was my one true ruler with me, I had to make room for consorts in my kingdom. But my heart held one woman, and that was a woman named Leona. The moment I unbuttoned her dress and saw the ugly orange scratch on her succulent flesh, my inside tore, and I wanted to hit something. No one was allowed to touch her, but me. I had punished my consort to losing 3 pounds until I could investigate the truth. I was not a simple man. I knew the outs and ins of someone, and consort Angelina was up to something. She had sought me out for comfort and company, because she had laid with someone who had impregnated her. This babe she had in her womb would not be caught carrying my name. Had she forgotten that her servants had not asked for any starch to clean her bedsheets? A woman whose cycle ran monthly, would stain her sheets, and starch was the only thing used to rid of it. Her servants had ceased asking, and I already knew. But I pretended to be deaf and mute to the rumor of the halls, and I wanted to see how long she would continue on this act. But today, when I saw her reaction to my queen, I knew instantly that the truth had to be revealed. I had spent the afternoon with Sullivan going over the military reports, and finally had a few hours to myself. I found myself in the Queen's Hall making my way to her chambers. Her maid Penny walked out with a handful of sewing tools and bowed when she saw me. "Where is Her Majesty?" I asked. "She is inside her chambers. She is resting." She left, and I pushed open the door to find her asleep on the bed, wearing a pale lavender sleeping gown. The top of the gown showed more than I wanted her to wear, and the mark from Consort Angelina's finger was an eyesore. I closed the door and walked to sit beside her, the weight of my body waking her up. "My king," she said as she covered herself and sat up, "I did not hear you come in." I reached over and touched her hair. "You were sound asleep. I did not want to wake you. Are you well? You have been pale to the look." Smiling, she replied, "I am well, Your Majesty. Perhaps just exhausted from the many things I have been working on." "Oh? May I inquire what it is that you are so busy doing?" She lowered her eyes, and when she turned to get off the bed, I reached over and pulled her toward me. I tilted her chin up and forced her to look at me. The eyes I had been in love with stared at me with a faint emotion I could not read. I leaned over and kissed her gently, and to my surprise, she responded, which made me excited. I pulled her closer and inhaled her sweet jasmine scent. My dearest, must I always force you to share your thoughts with me? Can you speak openly with me? I whispered. She put up her hands on my chest and stopped me from coming closer. And then her eyes shifted to me, and I saw something I had missed. Love. It was there. It could not be forced nor veiled. My king, I have always shared every single thought of mine with you, have I not? The only person who can be a part of me is you. Her words made me smile, and I released her as she got up to pull on her robe. She turned back around, and I pulled her into my lap, feeling the curves of her body. This woman had birthed me two strapping, proud lads who were the shining stars of my eyes. My queen, why was I not informed of Consort Angelina's encounter with you? I asked. She lowered her gaze and then up at me. My king, it was not intentional. If it were, you would have been notified. But I honestly do believe she did not intentionally mark me. But there is something heavy on my heart regarding Consort Angelina, and I am fearful to say, for I may be wrong. About her affairs? I asked. Her eyes widened, and I knew she had suspected just as I did. Do not worry, my queen. I have known of it for quite some time now. I was waiting for the right time to remove her from her position, but her outburst today made it easier to do so. I also know that she may be carrying a child, not from me. I touched her cheek. If I could have my way, I would only have you. But the kingdom puts an iron fist above my head as king. My bed must be shared with consorts, and my queen has lost her light for me. That is not true, my king. I have never lost my light for you. Smiling, I replied, then perhaps I may have the honor of sharing your bed tonight, and for the next few nights. I am weeping to feel your body against mine. She smiled and laced her fingers with me. I have never denied you of anything.
I know you've been hurt, I know that you're trying. The boss is complaining, your phone's always ringing. Outside there's the cold wind, inside the monotony. Baby, we need an exit from this. Honey, we need that sweet release. I know it will feel them, the electric feelings. You and me all night, yeah, be alright.
The thing about being a king is that you have to know who to trust and who to bury. From the moment I met my queen, I knew I could trust her with all I had. When I brought in Consort Summer as a servant, the men chasing her began to threaten her safety, and being the man I was, I had to promote her to keep my queen safe. Had I touched her? Not like a husband does a wife, but certainly cared for her as I would a sister. But with Consort Angelina, I had betted her twice since I brought her into the palace hall. The image was led to believe I nightly gave pleasure to all three equally. If I did not, my kingdom, my queen, my people would be threatened by outsiders. But I knew who I could trust, and Consort Angelina was someone I could not. I had to keep her close to keep an eye on her behavior, and I had learned a long while ago that she had been sleeping with someone. I had yet to figure out who kept her body warm when I was not around, not out of jealousy, but for duties to the kingdom in case she rose to rebel against me. I woke to my queen pressed against me, and as I kissed her farewell to attend to duties, Penny entered her chambers to keep watch on her. I made my way down the hall to my chambers and denied the servants bringing me water to bathe. I had made love to Leona all night long, and I wanted her scent on me for the rest of the day. I had opened up a scroll from last night's deliveries, when my captain of the guard, Sullivan, entered, in with an armor, sword by his side. I knew he was in love with the queen. How could I not? Each time she came into the room, his eyes lit up. Captain, are the men ready for battle at any given moment? I asked as I took a seat in my chair and looked over the scroll. Yes, my king. The men are ready to be sent off at your request at any time. Good. You did not return to your chambers last night, your majesty. I looked up at him. I spent the night in the queen's chambers. I watched him lower his face, to hide his emotions more likely, as he only nodded. I leaned back in my chair, forgetting the scroll as I laced my hands behind my head. Sullivan, tell me, why were you searching for me last night? He looked up and a smile appeared. I was here to report military protocol as usual. I could not find you. I understand, I said as I got out of my chair and walked toward him. I am here now. What is there to report? Lord Hampshire sends word that he is seeking to restore his land in the north. He requires your military power. He is short of men and would like you to send reinforcements. How many? 10,000 soldiers. I laughed. Has he gone mad? If I were to send that many, I would be putting the kingdom at risk for an ambush. What is he seeking to do? He is seeking to take back the land his father gifted to him, which was taken when his consort was murdered a few months ago. I ran a hand through my hair, frustrated at such an odd request. It does not sound like Lord Hampshire to make such a request. I'm afraid I cannot meet his demands. Send a messenger to his palace halls and request that he come to meet me in person to discuss these terms. Yes, your majesty. I take my leave. He turned to go, and I stopped him. When he turned back around, I walked him and put my hand on his shoulder. Sullivan, I need you to trail Consort Angelina. The woman is up to no good these days. Someone has been sharing her bed, and I need to know the man responsible. Bring him to me when you find him. Yes, your majesty. War is inevitable. As long as I have reigned over this land, I have sent out my men to fight for peace, and they have abided by my orders. Some returned with wounds that festered, while some lost limbs. Then there were the ones who could not return, and I had to mourn their absence when I assembled them together. War is a breach of peace, and it murders sons, husbands, brothers, and friends. It causes the rivers to bleed for days and the sky to rain for weeks. The earth becomes a soiled land where memories are forever embedded into the dirt to bury the dead. I hate war, but it comes no matter if I allow it to or not. I have to be prepared always, and my men have always been training on the field, in the woods, in the lowest of temperatures to always be prepared. Lord Hampshire was not a friend, nor was he an enemy, but his request was odd, and it was unlike him to make such demands. The last I had heard of him was when his kingdom was stormed from an angry consort's lover, and he set the northern barn on fire, killing his consort. He had taken control of the land, but Lord Hampshire had not cared much at the time of the demise, and went on as if nothing had happened. I had thrown my yearly banquet when he arrived with his ladyship, as if he was not in mourning. But perhaps now his thoughts had changed. As demanded of him, he showed up to my palace halls 2 days later with his captain of the guard and 2 servants. He was a man with dark eyes and light hair, but what he lacked in weight, he made up in height. I'd known him to be an honest man, but times could change a person. Lord Hampshire, you had requested reinforcements for me. The number you want is large, larger than expected. Are you planning to overthrow someone? I asked. He laughed and adjusted the heavy armor on his shoulders. My king, I would never plan to rebel at your feet, would I? I wanted to laugh, but I only grinned. I have seen my share of surprises, my lord. The world is full of it, and I am still young. He smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. Your Majesty, perhaps my wording has been unkind to you. My world has shifted from peace to broken in a matter of days, and what was rightfully mine has been taken. I seek for it to be returned to me, and the army I have is not enough men to do the task. Perhaps if you lend me reinforcements, the victory can be mine. I shall grant you my harem at your full access any time life bores you here at your palace walls. Is my harem not large enough for me, my lord? You must have exquisite taste in women, then. Laughing, he replied, Nonsense, your majesty. I simply am offering you full usage as you please. There is no reason not to reject my offer. I stood up from where I sat and walked to him. He was hiding something, and the message behind his odd request had me reaching for an itch I could not scratch. Lord Hampshire, your riddles are giving me a headache. You dare to come to me in my palace halls and give me this kind of answer? You must not want to keep your head. He suddenly dropped to his knees and lowered himself. My king, I apologize. I meant no offense to you and your palace. Then why seek an army of 10,000? He refused to answer, and I gestured for my guards. They surrounded him and removed their swords as he looked up, his face a broken horror of fear. "My king," he cried, "what have I done to receive such treatment? You are lying before me, the king, and you expect me to treat you with respect? Until your tongue speaks the truth, I will keep you where the rats live. Take him away." He stood to fight back, but the guards kicked him down and carried him and his servants and captain of the guard off to the dungeon. His screams were soon heard from the torture chambers.
I gave my heart to a stranger. Father, forgive me for it, but I don't wanna back.
Dinner was grander than usual. The table was filled with many dishes that had my mouth watering, and when I arrived to take my seat, my queen, along with the two consorts, were sitting, waiting for me. They greeted me, and I noticed that Consort Angelina was unusually pale. After I was served wine, I took the notion to ask her if she was feeling all right. "My king, I am well," she replied. "Perhaps it is the heat these last few days." "I shall have the physician come take a look at you." "No," she declared loudly. I am quite all right. Perhaps I need some rest is all." "And perhaps you should have the physician see you," I said. "Victoria, send word to have him arrive here on the morrow before noon." Her maid bowed and left the room as her face turned an ash gray, as if she was ready to vomit. "Are you ill?" I asked. "No," she said. "What is wrong with you?" She lowered her head, and then she looked up at me with shimmering eyes. A tear dropped from my cheek, and she remained silent. I slammed my hand on the table, and everyone jumped. "If you do not speak, I will have you whipped until you do." She wiped her eyes. "Your Majesty, I am with child." Queen Leona dropped her spoon, and it clattered onto the table loudly as Consort Summer lowered her eyes to the soup she'd yet to touch. My heart hammered inside my chest, and the realization that I was correct all along burned inside my mind. Consort Angelina smiled, a nervous look on her face as my queen took my hand, and I turned to her. "It is a marvelous celebration, then," she said with a forced smile. I removed my hand and laughed. "Marvelous? How can it be marvelous when the child is not mine?" "How dare you say such a thing?" Consort Angelina said with a heated glare. "You have been in my bed for so many nights, Your Majesty." "Correction," I replied. "I have been in your chambers, but not your bed. You sought my company, and I came to you. But need I dare share what I actually did when I came to you?" She blushed. "You know what you did." "Yes, I do know. And it was nothing but spending the night on the cold floor while you slept soundly on the bed." I watched her face flush, and then she lowered her gaze. I stood up and I called for my guards. They arrived within seconds and surrounded her. "Take her to her chambers. She is not allowed to leave until I give permission. Anyone who does not obey will be punished. Do I make myself clear?" "Yes, Your Majesty," they answered in unison. They pulled her from the chair and took her out as I sat down and picked up my spoon. I turned to find my queen staring at her plate, and I reached over to take her hand. "Eat. You look like you have lost weight." "My king, I must apologize for my poor behavior. I have not trained her well. This is why she has outdone herself in ways that is beyond repair." I reached up to touch her cheek. "It is not your fault, my dear. You cannot control a person's heart or actions. You have done well in all ways possible. Do not let a person like her destroy the smile I love." I arrived at Consort Angelina's chamber shortly after dinner was completed. She was sitting on the bed, her head hung low and her shoulders drooping. I did not announce myself, and she lifted her head up, standing as I entered, her face a broken array of emotions. She wiped her cheeks as I made my way to her. "My king, please do not punish the babe. It is your blood." I wanted to strangle her. "You are at death's door, yet you continue to lie through your teeth. Reveal the child's father now, or I shall beat both of you when I find out who it is." She shook her head. "It is you! How can it be me? I have not touched you in 4 months. Unless there's a magician somewhere who can remove my seed without me penetrating you, I doubt you are carrying my child. The sooner you reveal who the father is, the sooner you can be free to live. Would you murder me? It is a waste of blood on my hands. You are not that important to me. She came at me with her hands, and I pushed her away, where she stumbled and fell to the ground. Her hand immediately went to her belly, and she turned to look at me. My father gave me to you for military power, and this is how you treat me. All I have to do is let him know of how you treat me, and he shall withdraw all your power, she cried. I walked to her and bent down. And if I were to tell him that the babe inside of you is not of my bloodline, he will but do what needs to be done to take care of it. She paled and turned away from me. If I need to request him here so you can share the man's name, I will. Stop, she cried. Don't. I will tell you. It is a servant. I do not know his name. He was cleaning the stables, and I longed for your arms. You did not come to me, so I gave in to my needs. And this servant is? He came with one of the envoys who attended the banquet. I do not know his name, nor his whereabouts. I know you are upset, my king, but I ask a boon. You dare to ask a boon out of me now. She looked up with tears rolling down her cheeks. Please, let me birth the child, and I will leave after. No one will know of him. I only ask for my safety and the child's. I shall remain here under full guard and not make a presence in public. I promise you, your majesty, I shall not survive outside these palace walls. I stood up and walked to the door. I will allow it. You will be served 3 meals per day and medical visits should you require it. You will not receive visitors, nor shall you be able to leave this room. It will be boarded from the outside. If you break any of these rules, I shall remove you from the palace walls and bring you to your father for punishment. She got on her knees. Thank you, your majesty. Thank you, everybody, for turning in to Chapter 4. Chapter 5 will be loaded up shortly.
I gave my heart to a stranger. Father, forgive me for it, but I don't wanna back.